So I got a request from a subscriber to ask if I could talk more about how boundaries relate to attraction. This is a very fun subject and it's something that I'm happy to explore. So the way that this works is that, let's consider this. The self is a boundary, right? Consider there to be a field around me and around everyone else, right? This is the boundary of the self. A lot of people, depending on their emotional maturity or a lack thereof, don't have a strong sense of self, and therefore they also don't have a strong sense of self boundaries. And the interesting part of this is it usually has to do with something that happened early on in life, right? That left the person in a fractured ego state. Because of this, it's permeable, right? Or it's non existent, right? And so the reason that boundaries relate to attraction is because somebody who is codependent, somebody who has permeable or no boundaries at all, they're going to have a very hard time saying no. The reason is because they are outsourcing their overall sense of self, right? They're looking to that person or that person for validation because they don't have the capacity. I mean, it's challenging to say that they don't have the capacity to validate themselves. They do. It's just that because of it's not that it's impossible for them to validate themselves. What it is that they've learned through their own shit, their own marring and scathing, right? Their own trauma. They have learned that there's something inherently wrong with them, right? That there's something about them deeply rooted that is defective. And as a result of this, they don't have a fully formed sense of self. And therefore, because they outsource their sense of self, they have a very hard time saying no to other people. When you're not grounded in your sense of self, when you don't have a fully formed sense of self, when you're in a fractured ego state and the self is not fully formed, you're going to have a hard time saying no because you think that your overall sense of self is coming from other people. And if you say no, then you're not getting what it is that the fractured ego state needs, which is that external validation, right? Because, again, how you see me is how I see me. How you feel about me is how I feel about me, right? Somebody who is strong in their self, somebody who has boundaries, doesn't need to rely on other people's opinions of themselves to be okay with themselves, right? They're confident in who they are. They have a sense of self formed. There's not a fractured ego state there, and they just have no problem saying no. By the way, people who don't have boundaries, the people that have a hard time saying no, people that take advantage of those type of people that have boundaries, look at those types of peoples and they look at those types of people, and they're kind of like ugh, right? Not to judge anybody, but it's like the people that don't have boundaries because they don't have a fully formed sense of self. And I've had plenty of experience with this. They're very used to tuning themselves into everyone else's energy. So you see them getting caught up in everyone else's shit, right? It's like in survival when you're growing up, right? You're looking to be able to achieve a sense of safety. And if there are objects in the environment, objects being people, of course, objects in the environment that are not safe, right? You're going to have a very hard time learning about yourself and a healthy sense of direction. I emphasize healthy here because people that are not safe are not healthy, right? People that they guide you in directions that are not beneficial for you. They are not safe or healthy, right? And you learn that, and that is boundarylessness because the people that are not safe and are not healthy, they don't have boundaries because they're teaching you the same thing that they know, which is to not have boundaries, to have a very hard time saying no, and that results in poor self decisions, because then that adds to more of the either boundarylessness or permeability, right? Um, so the reason that boundaries relate to attraction is because when somebody has the capacity with zero anxiety around it to say no, they know themselves. They can't be moved from their position. There's no, swaying all over the place of this person taking me over there, that person taking me over there. It's just strongly grounded in no. And anything beyond that, for the person that's healthy and for the person that has boundaries and is strongly grounded and centered with their sense of self, anything beyond that, it does not matter what it is. Well, it does matter what it is. Unless it's a respect of the boundaries, right? A respecting of the boundaries. Anything beyond that is a walking away and goodbye, right? And that's the thing, because the reason that boundaries relate to attraction, the reason that boundaries make people attractive, is because they know themselves. Knowing yourself is attractive. Knowing yourself is a very attractive quality, because, and it doesn't make a person good or bad, right? It means that they have a fully integrated sense of self, and that's what's healthy. And because of that, they don't lose sleep over their decision of saying no to somebody, right? They're confident. They're calm. That's attractive, and that's really cool. And the reason that this is so important to understand is that, like, think about it. Somebody that doesn't have boundaries, they have a very hard time saying no. They have a very hard time saying no because they're outsourcing their sense of self. Because how you see me is how I feel, how I see me. How you feel about me is how I feel about me, right? Think about it that way. That's not attractive. That tells me that you don't know who you are. That tells me that regardless of whatever damage, whatever marring or scathing you've been through, whatever trauma you've been through, you have not done the work. Again, doesn't make you good or bad. It's just that you have not done the work to understand who the fuck you are, right? It means that you are still outsourcing your sense of self, which is very unattractive. The fact that you need external validation means that something happened to you early on in life. Again, doesn't make any person good or bad. It just means that something happened to them and they haven't done the work to get themselves to a place of being recentered and grounding, and grounded with themselves and knowing who they are. That's very real, and it's very important to understand that. But it's not just like attraction in terms of like liking somebody that boundaries create for a person. It's also success. People that have boundaries are successful, and people that have boundaries attract other people that have boundaries, because like attracts like. That's how this works. Um, so that's really the way that this works. Boundaries relate to attraction because people, I would argue at least, and again, it doesn't make them good or bad, but people that don't have boundaries, right? When you look at someone and they're just stretched so thin, they've given themselves to everyone and they haven't even given themselves to themselves, right? You look at them and they have a hard time saying no. You look at them and you're like, right? It's like, oh, geez, right? So that's really how this works. Um, yeah, I appreciate the request, by the way. It's always fun to explore this stuff.